You love the narcissist, but here's why you might not like them. Have you ever loved someone, but deep down, you just didn't like them? It's a tricky feeling, right? And if you've ever had a narcissistic person in your life, you might know exactly what I mean. But here's the twist. What if liking someone actually matters more than loving them? Let's talk about this. Think about the narcissist in your life, whether it's a partner, a family member, a co-parent, or even a colleague. Now, I want you to really ask yourself, do you like them? It's easy to say you love someone, especially if it's a parent or a close family member. But when it comes to narcissists, love often feels more like an obligation than a true connection. So I'm asking you today, do you actually like these people? And if you don't, what does that really mean for the relationship? I frequently encounter this scenario when working with survivors, especially when it involves parents. With partners, once people grasp the dynamics of narcissism, the abuse and the constant betrayals, they often realize that the love has faded, leaving behind only resentment. However, it's astonishing how many individuals trapped in toxic narcissistic relationships still claim to love their partner, even if they no longer even like them. A similar situation happens with siblings, grandparents, or other family members. You might hear someone say, "It's my brother, I love him, but honestly, if I never saw him again, I wouldn't mind." But when it comes to parents, the situation becomes even more complicated. I love my mom. I love my dad. She's my mother. It's my father. I can't stand being around her, but I love her. This presents the paradox of parental love. When I work with people and delve deeper, what often surfaces is a sense of obligation toward their parents. They might say things like, "They gave me life, they fed me, they provided shelter, they clothed me." These basic needs were met when they couldn't do it for themselves, so this is what they define as love. Unfortunately, it can often be a trauma bond that prevents them from truly addressing the root of the issue. In situations where a person feels they love a controlling, dismissive, and critical parent, I ask them to explore that feeling further. They may respond, "Well, it's my mom. Of course I love her." The problem here is that it creates a harmful precedent, especially for those with narcissistic or abusive parents. The word love gets distorted. It shifts from an authentic emotion to a sense of duty or expectation. Love becomes a requirement, a transaction. You are my parent, and while you did a terrible job, you are still my parent, so I love you. This mindset often leads to a lifelong trauma bond, where the true nature of love is never fully experienced. People often stay stuck in unhealthy cycles with their parents, saying things like, "I love them because they're my parent," and continuing to engage for reasons that make it hard to break free. They might show up to family dinners or holidays, or even live nearby, trapped in a mix of love and frustration. After spending time with them, they'd find themselves thinking about the manipulation, passive-aggressive comments, or other toxic behaviors. The issue with staying in contact with a narcissistic parent isn't just about today. It impacts future relationships too, shifting your emotional responses in ways that can create unhealthy patterns. Over time, it feels like you're always trying to prove your worth, and love becomes more of a duty than something genuine. This distorts the meaning of love itself. You might look at old cards or notes that say, "Love, Mom," or "We love you." But those words came with conditions, silencing you or controlling your actions. What you were really being told was, "Be what I want you to be, live for my needs." And you get those little notes to make it feel like love. But that's not a healthy relationship. Let's take a moment to talk about liking someone, because this could be key to understanding relationships that work. In narcissistic relationships, love becomes too complicated, filled with trauma, obligation, and societal pressure. But liking someone, that's where it matters. When we like someone, we feel happy around them. We feel understood, respected, and seen. Our interactions are positive, and we look forward to them. We feel comfortable and safe. Liking people is a big deal for anyone who's been through narcissistic relationships. It's a sign that we're functioning from a more grounded, adult part of ourselves, and we thrive in relationships where this natural connection exists. But what happens when you love someone but don't actually like them? Removing liking from love leaves only unhealthy dynamics. What's left is a trauma bond and manipulative behavior. Liking someone is a healthy part. It's the mutual respect, the back and forth warmth, and genuine care. It's about wanting to spend time together because both people feel safe, heard, and valued. This is the core of healthy relationships. Think about it. You may casually like someone you work with because they're kind, but you don't really know them yet. It takes time to figure out if they're genuinely a good person. Over time, if their kindness is consistent and feels real, that's liking. It's simple and authentic. Love, on the other hand, can push us into doing things that aren't good for us. We try to win the approval of a parent or partner, hoping for their affection. Love often makes us sacrifice our well-being, while liking doesn't bring that pressure. Narcissistic relationships, especially with parents, often mask sacrifice as love. And because love seems so important, we stay trapped in unhealthy patterns. Breaking free can take time and effort. When it comes to long-term relationships, we usually focus on love rather than asking, "Do I like this person?" Have you ever asked someone if they like their partner? We often treat love as if it automatically means we like them. But in narcissistic relationships, love is often just an obligation. It's socially accepted to say, "I love my parents," but saying, "I don't like them," feels unacceptable. If more people focus on liking their partner first, instead of just loving them, we'd probably see fewer divorces and breakups. Let me clarify something before we go any further. Love is undeniably powerful and beautiful. But when it becomes a reason people find themselves trapped in unhealthy patterns, blaming themselves for staying in toxic situations, that's when things get complicated. It's especially tricky when love turns into a justification for staying connected to someone, despite endless emotional harm. It's when love becomes a hollow reason for maintaining a relationship, even though it's doing more harm than good, that we end up losing ourselves. Take a moment to reflect. When you say you love your parent, what does that truly mean? If it's simply out of obligation, because they gave you life, food, or shelter, then call it what it is. Own it. Or maybe you hold on to good memories, and that's what you're labeling as love. But be honest with yourself. Do you actually like them? If not, ask yourself why. It might be uncomfortable, but understanding your true feelings is the key to true healing. Healing from narcissistic relationships is about breaking free from the delusion that you love someone you can't stand. It's about confronting the truth that for many survivors, understanding the difference between love and like is essential for growth. I recall a time when I had to tell someone who was narcissistic that I didn't like them. At first, I softened the truth by saying I loved them, but didn't like them. Looking back, I realized I didn't love them at all. I said I loved them because it was an easy justification, a fawning response, and it gave me a sense of safety at the time. We can be incredibly convincing with ourselves. We convince ourselves of anything, especially when we fear abandonment, rejection, or the idea that we aren't enough. Part of that self-deception involves telling ourselves that we love someone, even when we don't. It was a brave moment when I admitted I didn't like that person. It was weak to tell them I still love them. So let's break this down. Take a close look at your relationships. If you claim to love someone but can't even stand them, that's a major sign of a trauma bond or a relationship built out of obligation. It's okay to not love or like your parents and just accept that maybe they weren't equipped for the role of parenthood. Perhaps they had their own struggles or traumas. You can acknowledge that, yet still not feel love or affection for them. This is where the ability to hold multiple truths about a relationship comes into play. When you reach that clarity and still feel drawn to engage with them, you can do so with open eyes, rather than lying to yourself about what the relationship is. In healthy relationships, you can see the dynamics clearly and cultivate those connections where mutual respect and liking are present. And if you're fortunate, love may naturally follow. But when you strip away the like from love, what you're left with is a serious issue. Thanks for listening.